是你口语。
我叫我自己。哎。
So we'll do the opening prayers beginning on page 5, twice in English and once in Tibetan. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Page 7, the mandala offering. The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the 4 continents, and the sun and moon. As a Buddha field, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fields. Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate.
Sanje Jingla Mede Buba Yin Droga Nanda Yende Juba Shoi Changze Wadan Jujen Xiaoba Dan Jise Yeran Genshin Suwa Ye Gewa Junze Dage Jizaba Je Zobe Jangje Jimbo
Page 16. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the two vehicles and their combination according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings. Semchen namje samba dang loye chedan chedawa chechon tuman temba ye chejen kolo gordo so. Kanshi Gurve Janson Jesurun Shankara Gawale Dhruvaran Zepe Gajurin Bhoje Jeba Nambra Dhawe Jinshin Chenlapje Chujun Jasu Chenpe Yandrase Meshe Shen Malam Jachewa Yurungwa Lenje Drebe Druje Dhama Mebe Alama Damba Nangla Chan Zajen Chudo Jabzan Jo Jinje Labran Zendo So Dojin Changwan Delo Naro Dhan Malmeda Padun Jideng Gadian Samden Zave Lame Java Zaju Lama Yedam Josong La Surwan Devso Da Ju Chenje Lo Jamdrin Jedo Men Zanglan Jen Rabe Dongso Yung La Chao Zemen Jerwan Dur Jen Panje Den Gumbo Surwan Dewe Deda Du Samju Chule Me Chenje Lo She Tu Je Jen Nyinga Mamba Sanne Sundra Do Dobra Chenje Lo Laryang Namkada Nyambe Simche Tamje Je Tundu Tobja Lana Meba Yang Tabra Zobe Sanje Je Kumbang Tamba Chine Jen Tabra Cha Tihi Che Du Tambe Chu Samon Sen Shin Tuen Nyamsu Lamara Jiwo Nyambe Tuk Jeba Sabdab De Sembra Shu Telandir Kang Shubra Chewe Chu Oda Chaja Chimbu Ngaden Tuen Ne Sur Du Ne Nyamsu Len Sur Oda Teni Shubra Chewe Kao Tende Chi Yimbare. And so once again, generating the mind of bodhicitta, bringing to mind all sentient beings as vast as space and is vast, and with the wish to place all of them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment. Then with this motivation, please listen to the Dharma teachings with this intention in mind, and then following by putting what we hear into practice. And so picking up where we left off this morning in this explanation on the practice, this abbreviated practice of the fivefold path of Mahamudra.
Namjun Desungdawa Karse Tachu Druyagi Chude Jiginaya Tene Yanchi Sambeki Gunhong Dang Tene Drupsur She Mashegi Tone Tene Yanchi Gewa Shuk Chechongi Chebarji Yungere Sungurwa Penatane Chebaji Purwa Inayang Tene Medoji Purwa Inayang Ta Metode Nyoyagi Ngulgin Rosong Jibarwa Ko Chebarje Mere Medoji Nyoindu Yenayang Te Pulwe Kabgi Tene Sambe Gunhongi Chebargi Gone Tene Medo Pulwegi Gewatela Tene Chebar Shuk Chembo Ndo Tende Chebar Yungi Yore Sungbarwa Tende Yendu Zane Tene Joban Jeden Sungung Kari Sungbare Sana Ndi Sungdawa Karse Jidang Hansu Chu Chebe Kabla Ta Gunhong Rimba Mambo Je Yungurwa Penatene Jiwu Chungu Ki Gunhong Seyandro Tatene Je Soso Jewa Chimala Tori Ki Longchula Soba Tobya Ki Samlo Tendrege Tone Gewa Drubya Yungurwa Tene Yang Jiwu Ndengi Gunhong Seri Zane Tene Rani Taji Korwe Nane Ya Taran Dune Chu Che Ya Tendrege Yungurwa tene jiwu chimbu gunung sondu zane simchen tamche de tene kurwe dungene ya tarayage chedu oda chu cheyage gunung tene ji yongdu zane ta nganzo ji tabshi kang chada ji tone tene jiwu chimbu gunung de je tuya la tene bezon chegore songbare jinen songonge benna nganzo tene chuji galgu yona tene chude galwe ngla 당연히 지 딱jen로 지 마제와지나 당보 함고대 비네 추지 줄 갈와이나 근데 추데 댕 사브르 로디자네 한고비와 지부근 되 말와스 양 파안로네 다지 그동등소야 데스 근데나야 빼모가야 제양 추데 양자르지 게네 용도 추데 사브르 로디자네 양 대점제엔 되 말와스 다양 추데 파안로네 양 둘로 차상 비네 되는 지 추게네 다 죄파로는 로와이나 다 텐테기 지 투수 망보 지 배주 전에 당보 한고 비 초걸 양대 갈마도 고통야 제 초걸 대갈마도 단타마 둘로 차상변에 초걸 투수원으로 지나 투수 망보 증권으로와스 베티난신도 tene tangpo jiwu chungu semjeju, tene rengi semjeju, tene chenbu semjeju, tene chena desi yang chi tusu ngurwa la soba tene yungre, te indu zane tele tangpo kongne, tene nganzo chi samba ja chewa chi je tuya la bezun chena, tene kepsan chigire sumbare. O tene indu zane, tene tomar tene samba chanchu sem seyate, tene ke chenbu o tene chi yinba, re te indu zane, tene jobanji ten sumgo nga dengi nana ya da tangbo tene chanchugi semgi gunung de songyongdo wa o tene re.
And so, as that is the case, then generally speaking, when we practice the Dharma or engage in any Dharma activities, then the degree of the virtue that results in these activities is directly proportional to the motivation. So there's the motivation as the very foundation of the practice or the activity, and this really determines the strength or the power of the outcome. And so whatever the activity, it could be the same. For instance, whether you are making offerings or even, say, offering a single flower. If you buy a flower or flowers, the money might be the same. If, for instance, two people purchase flowers, but then depending on the purity of the motivation, then the outcome of that virtuous offering will be different depending on the level of the motivation. So it is always the motivation that determines the strength of the virtue. So Lord Jigten Sumgön says that although there are many different levels of motivation that one can give rise to, we should always strive for the highest level motivation. So there's the kind of beginning level or the lesser level motivation of the kind of beginning level individual, and that might be the motivation to engage in virtue with the objective of achieving well-being and benefit in future lives. So to take rebirth as, take a favorable rebirth in the higher realms, for instance. Or then there's the middling level motivation, which is really concerned with liberation. So it's the objective to attain liberation or freedom from suffering for oneself. And then there's the grade level motivation, which is the objective to engage in virtue for the sake of sentient beings, to bring all sentient beings to this state beyond suffering, to lead them all to the state of awakening. And so as Lord Jigten Sumgön says, the best objective really is just to go ahead and go straight to the Mahayana level motivation, or the motivation of the kind of great capacity. And the example that is given is like that of trying to cross a body of water or a river. So at first, you might just take off your shoes and then you walk into the river. And as the water gets deeper and deeper, you realize, oh, actually, I need to roll up my pants or take off my pants. And so then maybe you'll go back to the shore and roll up your pants, and then try again and go further. And then as the water gets deeper and deeper, it becomes evident that then you need to discard more clothing. So you go back to the shore again and discard another layer of clothing, and then try to cross the water again. And so this might go on for a while, but it much better than trying to cross the river in in different shifts like this, is to just take off all the clothes that are needed to be, you need to remove at the beginning, at the outset, and then you can cross the river in one shot. So this is an example for the different levels of motivation, because while it might be, we can develop a beginning level motivation, and then develop the middling level motivation, and then develop the highest level motivation. But if we have to get to the highest level motivation anyway, then much better is to just begin from the get-go with that vast mind state to begin with. So to begin with the highest level motivation. This is also why Lord Jigten Sumgön begins the fivefold path of Mahamudra with love, compassion, and bodhicitta.
Tene tatering tandang zundane ma ta niba yedam ge la soya ta terwa ta te indi zane tene yedam ge la gomba de la ta cheda namju ngarang so ta chi ndung ga ju che ge yedam ge wang de chewa yina tene den cho da pa mo de pa yabyum o tene chi cha yung ge ro tene te ma yin be ge je dur tang tene 상완 되바당 되진 걸로서야다 예담게 라초 망보레 예담 시와요레 예담 초요레 예담 렌자만다 망보로와 다 예담 빠도메 바 요레데 예담게 라서인데 저는 양 강사 가가 같은데 지금 말해 강사랑 말해 예담게 라서인데 저는 나랑조 섬게란신데 tene namba hlar gomne tene nyamsullen atela yedamga hlar gomba sungurwa ta tene indu tanda ngansunde nga dengi nangla tene yedamde zogo tene papa jinresi o tene jiri de yore papa jinresi re tene di Gyaltsen de karchene chayungre sundu zane jigne tene jechun melegi gombayan re jechun melegi ranlu tukje chenpo gom songbar yedamga hlar gomba kala sosurani yedamga hlar papa tukje chenpo gom songne o tene sundu di Gyaltsen cheyan re tene Gyaltsen yenda jikasana choban jeden songgo di songdo tene sabchuga nangla jedan yedamga hlar da jikpa yewa ina pe mangbo yore de yinna yang hlar tamje de sur dowa ina tene ningjiga nangla do re songbare te yendu zane tene ningjiga hlar de papa jenre se sene songdo tene tenregi Gyaltsen tene yedamga hlar gomba dela tanda cho tukje chenpo songya Gyaltsen jik ting bare tene ya Gyaltsen yenda jik tonen de songdo choban jeden song kare songbarsana ta ngarang cho jik namjun pyoju nangba sekdo zo da jik tenba tarsurugi tonuko mengda shawarwa tenmado da pyoju nangba dan jaju nangba sene sanjegi chuyla da chebar tende keyo mara da ina jubek pyoju gen nangba dan tene jaju gen nangba sene nangba mangbo yorwa da tenzo chuyugi tone mikse기 chebar게 요마레데 이나야 주름지게 돈에 고 맹터지 따용고요와 대인도다 표주 낭반라고 지기 돈에 당보 땜바 달산라고 지리잖아요 다표 강쟁게 종라 전에 산제게 땜바 도당 차상 달와와 인도 전에 tene pyo Khenchen dang ta tinan shin chi Himalaya reju denso mang chewa de papa chinre segin drushing re songbar da papa chinre segin drushing tende yimbe Gyaltsen de chi tene ni ne ngöng tene ngarang so da chi pyo ge jarbu tenson da chi na ya zo tudam ge la tenso papa chinre segre de yores o tende che de yang tenso go tone ngarang so yedam chinre seg drubishawa ina ten 되게 편히 채워 연결해 송도와 어떤데 인도 된 단다 가서 봐반데라 네 예담데 다 조고 진레서 차시 봐 어떤데 제 송연 거요래
So the next section, so having gone through the section of bodhicitta, then the next section is the section of the Yidam deity. So ordinarily or often in the case of the fivefold path of Mahamudra, the main deity is Chakrasamvara and Vajravarahi. And then there are also, any number of different Yidam deities that can be practiced, such as Havadra, Guya Samaja, Kala Chakra. And so there are all sorts of different deities, peaceful and wrathful deities. But we shouldn't think of the deities as being like different individuals or different entities. But what the deity is a representation of the true nature of one's own mind. And so that essence, given a form, is the meaning of any given Yidam deity. So here, the deity, rather than Chakrasamvara, the deity is Chenrezig. And there are a number of different reasons for that. So one is that if you remember the quote that was mentioned before by Gyaltsen Milarepa, so he says there to meditate on yourself as in the form of the great compassionate one. And so one reason is because this is how it was taught by Gyaltsen Milarepa. And then the second reason is that, so as Lord Jigten Sumgön says in his collection of profound instruction or teaching, that there are many different divisions of deities, many different types of deities, but what all the deities are subsumed into is compassion. They are all the essence of compassion. And since the self-manifestation of compassion is the deity Noble Chenrezig, then that's the second reason here that it is given that the deity is Chenrezig. And then the third reason is that there are, as there are these different streams of teachings or practices, those that came or were propagated throughout India and those that were propagated throughout Tibet, there isn't any difference between them, really, but in Tibet, since this is the region in which all of the sutras and tantras have taken hold or spread in their entirety and still exist to this day, and because in the Himalayan regions, this is said to be the field or the land that is subjugated or pacified by Chenrezig, and all of the Tibetan kings, the great Tibetan Dharma kings, their main Yidam deity, or their favored deity generally was Noble Chenrezig. So therefore it is said that that's another benefit to practicing Chenrezig is the Yidam deity.
tene tandande ta niban tene yedam ge la gom goya the Gyaltsen ro de zo karsana ta sangha gi chu ge zawan ro de tanai songgerwa taben hawa tendu rani yedam ge la ro sarta be thone tene ji cheba purwa tang oda tena shindu gecho khanre ji druba inaya tene gewa de niba chewa yung go yore tendu namjun desongdawa jerim gomba de nganzo tulo kamba nanshin res zorum gomba de tulo nange mengu nanshin res desongdawa
So
jerim gomba de nganzo chilo ge tulo nanshin tene zoram gombate nalo ke ngone ke menajin tulo kyong ke menajin re sumbare te indi sane penanganzo tene
Susung or chitong?
nga chen tene songdo tene te indi ta pena nganzo police ndo chila chajana pro police ko koran ngone police inayang tulo dan koran ge chida jencha dan tanzo kaya mewe tono ko yona ko chikchidang ke mechuman rawo chik chaadegirwa ta kesi ko identity card chik tena ta nesu lokare mato pe chilo nga zo lamsa hako tu marwa ta kesi ko korang one tende police yimba nanshin yimbe tone ko ge tulo da jencha chasang ta ne lebi wa yina yan nupa chikidwa modra tanzo lamsa ka na ka chogundu kare chena yang ko chi chunggu tono wancha chengbo chi yodegirwa peti nanshin ngazo jerim gombe tone tene yang chi cha tsewa dan choban pruwa la soba dawa da tende chi cheba ina tensu tete yang chi nuba chewa gewa shuk chewa top chewa tende chi yungu yisare pena kala ndawo chi sawe kam ndawo chi ina yang tene nga dengi nane chanchu ge samdan rewe tone kala chi sasungwa ina tikba chimbu lo jonga nyamlen chanru urwa pena tene se sawa te da jiri samchen tamche dang labar do ngarang zo zubu nangla yuebege da chi sokcha mangbo ji yudu zane simbu gi rig mangbo yur sungu yurwa tende tenso tamche lako pena sambe tenrege samlu tona sajaba ina ko kala sayage lega chikba rete yang tenso tiba chimbo lo jonglan ro re sungdo tena shen yedam ge la gombe tone kala chi sajaba ina tene chogan kololon ro re sungdo tende che yundu tene tandande chanchu ge simde tikchen ge chu ge zawa yinzang tangbo la xie tene sangha ge tanhang de sangha nyamlen ge zawa yinzang ta niba tene sangha ge la gomba se te song yung yu
So gongda tangbo de.
tangbo tikchen ge chu ge zawa de chanchu ge simro tende yinzang tangbo chanchu ge simde xie ta sangha ge chu ge zawa de tanhang re tende yindu tene niba ta yedam ge la tende chen song ja bare de wan ma
So the reason why we practice the Yidam deity next is because the root of all secret mantra is pure view, the practice of pure view. And so that is why we then practice generating ourselves in the form of the Yidam deity. And then when having done the generation stage or arising in the form of the Yidam deity, then whatever other virtuous activities, such as making offerings and so forth, become all the more powerful due to the power of the generation stage. So the virtue of those virtuous practices becomes much stronger. And so it is like, so Gyaltsen Rinpoche says that the generation stage is like wearing clothing, putting on the clothing of the generation stage. And then the completion stage is like the person inside the clothing. And so this is like, for instance, a police officer who is all decked out in full regalia, has a certain power in his clothing as a police officer. And then there's the person inside, the essence of the police officer, who is that individual. If he takes off all his regalia, then he appears as an ordinary person, until he shows his ID card, and then we know it's a police officer. But when he puts on all of his regalia, then he has much more influence, like cars immediately stop. He's able to, kind of direct things and have more influence in his regalia as a police officer. And so it's the same way with the generation stage. It's like just donning the clothing of the generation stage, the ornamentation, and then everything that is done within that, like making prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, etc., that all is rendered more powerful through kind of the assistance of having the generation stage present. The virtue becomes greater. And all activities and with regard to the practice of the fivefold path in general. For instance, eating food. When we eat food and we're doing it, in the context of the bodhicitta section, bringing it into onto the path as a mind training for developing bodhicitta, and we think of all the sentient beings that we wish to benefit by eating, like for instance, as you eat, thinking, oh, there are all of these kind of microscopic beings and living organisms in my body. May all of them be benefited by this food that I'm eating. And then it is brought on to the mind training of bodhicitta, of the great vehicle. And then when we eat food while generating ourselves in the form of the Yidam deity, then it becomes a Gana chakra. So in this way, any of the like any ordinary activities that are done in the context of the practice of the fivefold path are rendered all the more powerful through that practice. And so as the root of the great vehicle is bodhicitta, we have the section of bodhicitta, and as the root of all secret mantra is pure view, we have the practice of the Yidam deity.
다 되네 되네마 다 예담게라 검수로 송인도 자네 되네 당보 디지다와 델레 빼가란 답자 다베 란류 진레스 왕세야지 다대 제름 검베게 림바치제 된든디 송은나 무스 림바 숨르고 송도와 다 제름 검수로 제바체는 림바가 라고지 용거와 tene indu tandan de joban je ten song gong ge sap chu ge nang la ten di pa pa chen re zu gom tang te la tene namba nga yu to ne ma ship cha chen song ju re ten indu ngan zo yang da tandan ten den de chi shu wa yin na ta de le sa ya ge chi de ge tene tang bo chu dam je ge rang xin de dong ba ni yin du za ne tene ye dam ge la ji gom ba yin na dong ni ge ngan ne ye dam ge la yin namba sha wa chi gom go yu re 텐데 인도야 태양 동바 동장다고 지금 많이 봐라 돈이다 닝제 텐데 송돈 주변 강내 되는 예담게 라인 남바지 샤고 유로와 대인도 텔레에서 찍인 누바 되게 단한 쇼게 쉬와나 신체네 되는 돈담 장주게 셈 근접 장주게 셈 검수로 공도 송송아 대인도 텐데기 되는지 장주게 셈 되는 돈담 장주게 셈 디강내 써야 돼 대인도 안주 제름 검도 림바 당보대 동반이라 장추바 서로와 동리게 돌아드네 장추바 장추 응아선 요래 제나 제름을 뭐 고민도 된 티나나 당보 드네 준이 동반이라 장추바 써야 돼 다나쇼게 된담 장추게 섬 되게 숨고 요래스
So then so here we have the actual section of the Yidam deity. So it says, from within that state, in the center of 100-petaled white lotus and moon disk, we appear as the mighty Avalokiteshvara, or Chenrezig. So here in the, we have mentioned kind of three stages of arising. And there are different methods involving the different stages to which the form of the deity, or in which the form of the deity arises. So there's the three stages of the arising of the deity, or the 5 stages of the arising of the deity. And generally, Lord Jigten Sumgun, in his collection of a profound instruction, mentions of the 5 stages, also in relation to the arising of Chenrezig or Avalokiteshvara. And so the first of those 5 stages is the foundation or the ground of emptiness. So since all phenomena, the nature, the intrinsic essence of all phenomena is emptiness, then it is from within that state that the generation of the deity begins. But it isn't just an absolute emptiness, it isn't nothingness, it is emptiness pervaded by great compassion. So it is the indivisibility of emptiness in compassion. And so this is what was stated in the line above, the last line of the bodhicitta section, which is the ultimate, referring to the ultimate bodhicitta, which we discussed this morning. So it is from within that emptiness pervaded by great compassion, which is the ultimate bodhicitta, that the form of the deity arises. And so this becomes the first stage, the first awakening factor, stage of awakening in these 5 stages, or these 5 awakening factors that are is the progression of the arising of the deity's form. So the first one is the awakening factor of emptiness.
Tene Nyima den la changchuba songruwa den re ta tindu den tela tanda yedam jenda ge kamra chena tene Nyima dang dawe den songruwa ta tanda den pema dang dawe den re tindu de nganzu druptam nang la Bekar dabja dawe u songdawa meto tatanji tongbani ti ngane tene meto pema karbo dama jatamba yunkenchi tene ti tengdo dawe chingurus tatende den nitsi o te songba tege tene tatande den la changchoba se changshu niba tere te chidu zane ta pema karbon tegi zo karin chungu yuresana tene ngarang zoge simgiran jin devarishibe nyingbote tene tanda ngarang zo ta chik leda nyomongba ki jimala ko tum deva yina yang simge rangshin korang de jima ki tsawa ne maguyba pena meto pema de damgi nana che deva yina yang damgi time maguyba nangshin tenren tsumbar che wala tene peme ki den ta tenra wo tene simge rangshin kanyinba de chik to tup songwa yina korwe ki tene pe dunghe ki tsawa tawu korwegi dunghe mei tsawatagu tenso tamche pa shivar chebegi rangshin tu zane tene dawegi den sana oda tende shene pema karbo tang tene dawegi den saya ta tege zo tene den la changchuba saya ti niba de sumbare.
And so the second awakening factor is the awakening factor of the lotus and sun and moon seats. So that's the second thing that arises. So from within the state of emptiness, then there arises a white lotus with 1,000 petals. And on top of this is the moon disk. So as it says, in the center of 100-petaled white lotus and moon disk. And so, or moon, a mandala of moon, a disk or sphere. And so what this generally is representing is first the lotus is representing the kind of unstained essence, or the Buddha nature, the Tathagata Garbha, which is the true nature of our own mind. So that essence, even while it is encased with the obscurations of afflictive emotions and cognitive obscurations, even while it's covered over, it never at any point in time becomes stained or defiled by the presence of those temporary obscurations. And so it is like a lotus that is born out of the mud, but always remains completely unsullied or untouched, unstained by the mud. And then the reason for the moon disk is that just like the soothing moonbeams, it pacifies. This represents the cooling or the pacification of the fire or the heat of the afflictions of samsara, the suffering of samsara. And so that is what the reason for the moon seat. And so this second stage of arising with the lotus and moon seat is the awakening factor of the seats.
Ta tene di nang la dupa nang su ta chobe tene 제레세 그 굼데 제베나 가르 송바스나 다 탄다 다웨기 찌마타나 테네 숭기 장주바데 가스나 이게 시가보지 살와 다웨기 징구르기 찌마타나 테네 이게 시가보지 대 숭나 장주바 세르와 테네 대시티니 칼레 넨주르네 주르와 템네 테네 메도 페마 카르보 임발라 코랑기 나라 랑싱기 페나지 테네 이게 시긴 센데바지 델라테네 툭 창생나 장초바 세레 어티인도 타나 장주 니데 당 무슨나 소문도 테 조베게티 니 송유레
So dang the sung la
당부
chang.
송 잉르라 장초바스 로와 텐 테제라 툭 창생나 장초바스 답변은 제네즈기 창생데 제다메도 빼마당 정화로와 다든다 메도 빼마대야 창생인도 자네 근데 메도 빼마 가고 이게 시긴 선바지 근데 내추와 어떤 데셨삼 송래
So then there is a kind of the more extensive explanation then comes with then the next two arisings or awakening factors. So first then you have the lotus and the moon disk, and then on top of that appears a white Hri syllable. So the Hri syllable is the third stage, which is the awakening factor of the seed syllable of enlightened speech. And then that this is in two stages, then that transforms into a white lotus. But the way that Jigten Sumgön describes it is that the white lotus arises, and that is naturally marked with the Hri syllable, and so that then becomes two sort of in one. If it is two, if it's the awakening factor of the seed syllable of enlightened speech is the third, and then the fourth is the awakening factor of the hand implement. Which in the case of Chenrezig is the white lotus. So the hand implements are the lotus, the white lotus, and the crystal mala. But here is represented by the white lotus.
Tene ta ngaba tela tene ta ranlu Chenrezig ta kuyong zoba. Tene papa Chenrezig o sartavya. Tene ta rimba nga. Tene chi chaswa. Dati indu chidan tendregi tachi chirim gomba kausu rinpa tendregi gomgoya Gyaltsen ro karsana tene sangha kabla nganzo chirim da zorim sene niyu du zane ta ngarang so jezo nigi pa jangwar chawa pa tabar chawa de karsana mada pegi jewa tang chiwa nipu de janggu ruwa nganzo korwe nana ta chiga mada pegi ne jewa lemba janggu re tena shindu chiwa janggu re te indu tene 제름데 조 제와 종을 제바래 조름데 산인가 좀 체외기 체와 종을 제바래 마다벤 체와 종을 제바 다 제름 종을 제인도 전에 배나 당간조 제 제와랭고요나 당보 마이 날지 구도와 마이 날지 구로와 대 종을 제발라 당보 준이 동반이라 장초바 써야 되래 그래서 tene tena jendo ngal yoba jibu pengamare pamegi kutani ki sabenguruwa tendu te jongra chebala den pematang dawa saya tere deso tene tena jendo ta pame kutani yoba jibu pengamare jewa lembar chebala kutani dang ndrewe pardu namshi ji guruwa tendu pardu namshi jongara cheba tela tene yige shi tanji samba tere tene te penachi pardu namshi yan yu pame kuta yan yu ba jibu pengamara kunzo sum nyamdo sum zom guruwa ten te jongara cheba la nyamdo zomba de jongara cheba la ten tandan de pema karbo yige shi in semba pema karbo te kuta nila tene trubeki lyu de che tene yige shi de 디 나와 슈베긴 남시 대체 다 텐데 종을 제베치는 송게래
Kongtate Jimati.
Penna Pema Carbote, Pame Kutani, Dubati Cherua.
Pema Carbo.
Ta Pema Carbotella, Yigishi in Sembase in Duzane, Tani Kutani Dedang, Namshin Dedeva. Or Shitik Namshin Sumba, what name do Tejon Cheva. Tani Tadan de Tarani, Yedam, Genesis, Guyonso, Zoba Saltava Tegi, Tening Aranzo Tachi, Megi Luchasang, Trubdebe, Madabegeta, Lutepa Jonarcheva. What in Degi Guba Yusungerwa, what in the Chene, Tenicherum Gombare.
So then the fifth in these five stages, or these five awakening factors, the five stages of arising, the fifth is arising oneself in the fully developed form of Chenrezig, so clearly appearing in the form of Chenrezig. And so all of these stages of the arising of the form of the deity correspond with the purification of birth. And in this case, particularly, these five stages correspond with the purification of a womb birth. And so when we meditate on the generation stage in general, this purifies birth, and when we meditate on the generation stage, on the completion stage, which we will get into tomorrow, this purifies specifically death. So the generation stage purifies the birth process, whereas the completion stage purifies the death process. And so the reason for, and in general, all through the visualization of the deity through the generation stage, all that the impure phenomena is transformed into pure appearance or pure perception. So all impure phenomena becomes pure. And so in this way there's, the dampo Khenchen dampo
My Naltreve.
mare the pache digiore. And so when we take birth through the womb, then each of these stages correspond with the different stages of development through the womb birth. So first, the womb itself corresponds with the awakening factor of emptiness. But if there's just the womb itself, then that alone doesn't benefit. You have to have also the seed and blood of the mother coming together in the womb to form the fetus. So then that, the second awakening factor of the lotus and moon disc correspond with the uniting of the father and mother fluids, the seed of the father and the blood of the mother. But then if you have the fluids of the mother and father, that alone doesn't benefit. You also have to have the consciousness that enters in between. So the consciousness here corresponds with, that's the syllable hri is represented by the consciousness. And so then, even having those three of the womb, the mother and father fluids, and the consciousness, you still also have to have the unification of them. And so that is why there's finally the hand implement, or the white lotus marked with the syllable hri. So the white lotus represents in this case the father seed and the blood of the mother, and the hri is the consciousness in between them. So it's like the hri is encased, between these two. And then the one arises as the fully developed form of the Yidam deity of Chenrezig. And so this whole process then purifies all of these aspects, these kind of impure aspects of the arising of a physical form through birth, and so therefore it purifies the birth process.
다테니 데네마 진레시테 니군도 카르포 샤르지 차지바 송도와 차지바 림보체당 다르지 젬바 데네 차 당분이 두갈라 탈모자르데바지로와 데네 오마 예바테기 셔긴 팅와 젠데바지 윤바테기 메도파마 카본 젠데바지 데네 샤브돌지 지모퉁게 주데바 티 토갈라 되는 양 다와 직체 진레세 토갈다 라니 진레세로와 되는 토갈라 다와 다웨테나 얘기 시커보야 랑데바지 시 된티 셔데긴 타고네 이게 중매 아주 꼴데바 단디 꼴두잖아 엔데고로와 꾀백값소 유연도 꾀고로와 베나 셔데야 지마체 되는 데라 유연도 꼴네 엄마네 뱀에 홍세 유연도 꼴 되는 간조 나다 윤도 나 코랑 꼬라제베 거스니 예수 꼴 같은데 지구로와 텐도 님보 얘기 좀 하지 꼴스 오다 대보도 숨바래 대인도 다 되게 조고 제름게라 곰바 어떤데 지르다와
And so as we arise in the enlightened form of the deity, then we have one face and 4 arms, and are adorned with jewels and silks. The lower 2 hands are joined at the heart, and in the gesture of prayer, and the lower right arm or hand holds a crystal lotus, and the lower left holds a crystal mala, and the lower left holds a white lotus. And then at the heart center, we're seated in the Vajra position, the Vajra posture, and at the heart level is a moon disc, and on top of this, standing upright, is a white Hri syllable. And around the white Hri syllable is the 6-syllable mantra. And the way that the mantra is arranged is to the left. So it's arranged, each syllable is kind of positioned, going counterclockwise. So at the front, you have Om, Ma, Ni, and it's going like that to the left. But then as it turns, as it circles, it's circling clockwise or to the right as it circles. And so then in this way we practice the generation stage, meditating on ourselves as the deity.
단된 조가수 단단간도 다 예담게 라텐데지 살담네 되는 내용도 전에 지 당보콘에 간조다 지 진레시 만디 찌도 로연도 전에 섬물지 데스 텐데 샤르토바이나 양지 준트네 라니 예담게 라라 서 테바지고는 데스 칼레 카본로지로와 디인도 전에 되는 딜라 내려주송도 가르치는 것에게 예담게 라이까서 개체슈데 투소 데세보 고미야데 개체슈레스 다 단단로 지는 진레스기 투소데 이게 시르와 대인도 제름 진레스 금백감다지는 이게 시다고 지부 제라 삼노타네 지부 제라 맹네 델라드네 지 산낭슈 체르 제토야라드네 배전직 제토나 드네 칼레 제름랑 신게드네 살용그레스 대인도 드네 베나 공게 장추심 공백갑라 chanchusum servo chayala chambada hinjinide kechishundus tene jeremge hlasevo chayala yege tuso ge sheikda te gomyat tuso gomyat pe kechimundu songundu otende indu zane tene nganzo da ji jenreze chasang ji saltap tuno yashurwa te tamatu na ya tene zogo kasna jenreze ge tuso ge tene yege sheikda da tende jila tene miba zone ne toba ina tene te kale tene 양지 예담게 라이 구용조 tene salteviala pendo chewa tene chi yungu yusare tene re
So then as we recite the mantra of Chenrezig, then we meditate in this way, allowing it to arise in our mind. But of course, to hold a stable visualization continuously can be quite difficult. So as Gyaltsen Rinpoche says, the most important aspect of the visualization of the generation stage is the life force of the deity, which is the seed syllable. So to really develop a clear visualization of the seed syllable first. In this case, the seed syllable is a white hri, as the seed syllable for Chenrezig. So when we practice, we can mainly practice visualizing the seed syllable. And then as that becomes more and more stable, as the visualization becomes clearer and clearer, then eventually we are able to hold more and more aspects of the visualization, or finally, maybe then we can maintain eventually the visualization of the deity's entire form. But just like in the practice of bodhicitta, the method for really developing kind of a clear generation of bodhicitta is by primarily focusing on the cultivation of love and compassion. So here, in the same way with the generation stage, the method is to mainly focus first on the seed syllable, which in this case is the hri. And then eventually, as that becomes more and more stable, then we're able to hold the visualization of the full scope of the visualization. And so there's great benefit in practicing it first in this way.
다 테네 제렘 제베게 감도 제나마 테네 제렘 차상 살답서도 자네 당간조 베나 mendo지 나랑조 메기 륜도지나 다 마이 고베나 마 제츠르게 제라 테네 다지 지땡기 롭종라 소바조고 요레 테네페 다 등산도 저는 총가르게 파티 빼면 땅고도 테난 신체네 로와 총가 땅고로 테난 신체도 테네 페나 라곰 서베지라 할람 쳬바 풀야당 테네지 할라 왕 굴야당 테네 할라 되발라 소바 레빙고와 오다 텐소데 지당 남중 간선 지땡기 메지게 테네 메세난게 제외기 주름 나시치는 테네 제름 곰바 름바텐데지 소용고요와 다 텐소 테디 조가 제베나 용용고요 단드나 돌드바지 인도자네 테네 제네세 곰네 다지 라코란 스타트업 투나 테레 테마투나 이게 시익다고 지라 메바존에 드는디 아데 다야데 지르도 요레 스타 이게 좀 다야들도 만에 빼면 홍세와 드네레
And then in the extensive sadhana or explanation, there are also the ways in which the kind of ongoing development of the generation stage also can correspond with the different aspects of development, like once one is born. So, for instance, once you are born from, you leave the womb of the mother and you are born in the world, then there are different stages of development, training, entering into the stages of study. These days also there are lots of parties, also lots like birthday parties maybe. And so in that way, then this also kind of corresponds with these parties and so forth, with making offerings to the deity, or different aspects that correspond with the praise, the praises to the deity, and so in this way, kind of the human experience is also reflected in the kind of pure stages of generation that are maintaining the visualization of the generation stage in the form of the deity. And so there's a lot that is discussed in the more extensive sadhanas, but here we just are mainly focusing on ourselves as the Chenrezig in the form of Chenrezig, and if we're not able to maintain that clear visualization, then we are basically just holding the visualization of the seed syllable Hri and reciting the Mani mantra as we maintain this visualization.
다 tane sumba lamen nenjuru sumbarwa 다 lamen nenjuru gomyate chelab nyurdun juya ge chedo lamen nenjuru gomba sumgarwa namju chelab pen jobo toya ge chedo lamen nenjuru gomba sumgayore te indu zane tane 다 chedan chuju changme ge nangla tane lamen nenjuru gomya yorwa chachana yore tane laban raje ina 가주반 라제이나 다체당 따와 찾아 첨부레데 이나양 조체쇼가 냠nen데 라멘 nen줄라 슈체와 냠nen 난그레 송도와
Tawa Chaja Chim.
따와다 차친 딱 고미야 등수 제로와 등수 조레데 이나양 냠nen 나는 냠nen 기직다 짜완저오지 냠nen 나는 개체슌저오지 라마 공바데는 개체유 송도와 때 개체부 임비 좀 센저오데 가르 송도자네 penna ta 단단디 티바 침부기 사당 람게 연된 간제지 줄레제고 연양 대제야게 젠조데 라마라레 용기로와 라마라 다 라마텔라양 망보여데 조체션로데 소소게 자웨라마세야 테레 근데 자웨라마세데 남준 지당게 가서 남주 가르치 간대질은 문제 제기해서나 다지 소소라 왕 그런게 소소라 주 시엔게 소소라 드네 제름던 조름게 맹아 난게 다 텐데지라 가든 숨된게 라마스나다 텐데지 송거로텔 자웨라마 세기레스 남주 텐데지 송거도와 다 레데 가주바기 조조 자웨라마 세데 간대질은 문제 제기해서나 라마티 셰응으스 제 유롱 메롱 라마테긴도네 담가 슈뇽 유나 라메난다 간달 라마테긴 생고와 잠지고네 되는 간조 타마르베기 지금 남도 파 가버치 동게 다 텐데지 유나 데소소게 딱 원해지 레담 문엄긴 데라 유데베다 자벨라마 세야데 텐데지라 되는 건제 난게요래 제당 가든 숨된 사야데 자벨라마 레데 이나 자벨라마 차당데 소소게 섬게 되네지 초르와지게 토네 되네 라마 자벨라마는 로고로와 텐데 다 텐데지 송바레
So then the next section is that of Guru Yoga. So Guru Yoga is the means through which we swiftly receive the blessings. And so the Guru Yoga is really very important in the context of all practices, but in particular for the Kagyu tradition, and mainly in relation to the view, developing the view of Mahamudra. So mainly the view is Mahamudra, but the route or the means to arrive at that view is through relying on the Lama, or the blessings of the Lama. And so, for example, it is said that for all of the qualities of the paths and bhumis of the like Mahayana paths, the bhumis and paths, all of the qualities arising or developing in the mind stream really come down to mainly reliance upon the guru or the lama. And there are many different lamas, many different types of spiritual teachers, but mainly we often refer to the root guru or the root lama, and this is referred to as, for instance, the lama endowed with the three kindnesses. So the one, for instance, from whom you have received, from whom you receive empowerments, explanations of tantras, pith instructions, and so forth. But primarily in the Kagyupa tradition, this the meaning of the root lama kind of goes even further to what is indicated, through like a powerful past karmic connection. So, for instance, even whether you have met the guru in person or not, whether you have received, pith instructions from them or not, there can be, for instance, cases where just merely hearing the name of a particular teacher, then that has the power to bring to a halt all concepts. So one's mind becomes free of discursive proliferation merely upon hearing the name of someone. And that such a powerful experience indicates connection through former through former karma and aspiration pairs. So of course the Lama is referring to the Lama endowed with the three kindnesses, but also there's mainly this this indication of a powerful connection based on the inner experience that happens in the mind.
Tene Lama gombe kablata ke chishun ro de karasanam tene mugu chene sola tapte tene wanshi yana yande lenyate ta ladrugi nyamlengi nyingbun ro de teimbare ro Lama jiru gom tene tela mugu gi pe ji shuk chimbu tone sola tap teda nyamdo tene wanshi lenyate wanshi yana yande lenyate ladrugi nyingbo drawochi yingyo sare te yendu zane ladrugi nyingbo drawochi tende yendu tandande lamchen jarbo rinpoche ge tanda zhong laman chebe ge tik ji yore tenan de songdawa mugu dang solndib cheya de pena kanda chigre sana yarke ge tuchwe la sala yang chwe yu tene chwe yu chwe de chwe niga zomse ge sacha chigla tene 사변 따바다 지바레스 무구단 손them 니보데 죄다 춘난신레스 로와 다 죄다 춘인 좀베 돈에 테라 사변 따바이나 tene koran 제부 푸숨 줘가지고 제약이 차칭 상만 좀 살아바레스 베티난신 무구단 tene 손them 니디 요 살아바이나 tene 라메게 칠랍 란신게 tene 토그레 손요레 대인도 전에 tene mugu chene da soran devyate tene ladrugi nyingbo yimbare
tene lamchen gyabor rinpoche gare tsombare garere
laman chebeki tik jiyure ndo laman chebeki tik
So the most important aspect of this Guru Yoga practice is the supplication with a mind of devotion. So through a mind of devotion, then one supplicates and receives the four empowerments again and again. And so we meditate on the Guru abiding at the crown, and then through the power of fierce devotion, we receive the empowerments, we receive the blessings. And so this is really the essence of this Guru Yoga practice. And so Lamchen Gyalpo Rinpoche says in his explanation or his commentary on the Lama Chupa practice of the Drikung lineage, that the qualities of devotion and supplication are like the factors that arise during summertime of, like the warmth of the earth and water. And so when the earth is, no longer, I think meaning no longer frozen, but it's like warm, and there's also the presence of moisture or water, and then a seed is planted with those conditions, then that seed will ripen into, whatever fruit. It will, it has all the conditions needed to blossom into a fully grown plant and with fruits and so forth. And so in this way, then by practicing the Guru Yoga, the main kind of conditions for the blessings to enter are devotion and supplication. And then when those two are present, then this really becomes the essence of the practice and the blessings can actually enter.
Tindu tendere ta tin mugu dang solde ten tanji shuwa nanshin wanshi lenne lamegi tukdang rangi sem yana yand sewa o te keche shu jegi chagyu sare tui lame tukdang rang sem yemin du sewa o te keche mbure songre tende indu zane tanda choban jikden songgongi deji songdowa lamege kode kangre nanshin res tene ngarang choge mugu dang sondubgi Nyima nanshin chig masharwa ina tene chenlabge chode yungu mara res chenlabge chode top gu yo na ta kangre la Nyima shanne kangre ma shogu urwa tene nanshin tene lama guji ge dani la tene mugu ge tone ta sorwan deb o tugi se o tene che tene kechambore songbarwa ta tendu ndona 대배게 되는 누바첸 통보지 줄을 제고 일단 라루기 냥len 탈침바 차야라 다 텐데지 용화는 먼저 당보 대바 충충 내야 체르 따는데니 다 곰고로와
And so then through these conditions of devotion and supplication, then we receive the four empowerments. And the main product of this, or what then occurs, is that our own mind and the enlightened mind of the Guru merge indivisibly. So one's own mind and the mind of the Lama unite and become indivisible. And so Lord Jigten Sumgön also explains the qualities of devotion to be like, or Guru Yoga to be like this, that the Lama's form is likened to the example of a snow mountain, and our power of faith and supplication is like the sun. So if there isn't any faith and supplication, then it's like there are no sun rays shining on the snow mountain, and so therefore it can't melt the snow and cause the blessings, the stream of blessings to flow. And so in order to receive the blessings, we have to have both of the condition of the Guru, the snow mountain of the Guru, and also the conditions of the sunlight of devotion and supplication. And then through that, the sunlight of devotion and supplication can melt the snow, and this in this example, then it allows the blessings to flow and enter our mind stream. And so this is really important to develop, very pure faith. And so we begin with maybe a little bit of faith, and then that develops over time, and it gets stronger and stronger.
Tene nguma choje phele phebe kabla tene choge loma zo ndrom tembarwa tene ndrom tembe Nyima chila choje ran de shudwa nganzo phela tene jigda chunyanglen chingken mambuyus ina tobaje at this nyonyong ro kale khabon ro chagndo te Gyaltsen karchin res na ya shudwa shudu zane choje karson barsan teres choran jogi tene 소소게 라마람 메인 두시 마도베 산제긴 두시 약메와스 테인두 잔에 뜨는 똑바지야 될 갈래가고 차그레스 대치도 특바 침부기 사당 람도 또바 간제지 제고 요나양 자와데 라마라 투데 유레스 오 테인두 라마라 테네지 소소응은에 두시 간제지 여바나신 테네 지라양 대든 총바지 테네 토그레스나 송바다 Tendu tene peche gunsan lame shalonarwa mugu rabla toba rab mugun ring la toban ring sana sungdawa o tendere
And so Atisha was his main disciple was Drontompa. And one day he asked Atisha, there are many practitioners in Tibet, there are many people practicing the Dharma, but there are relatively few of those practitioners who give rise to authentic realization. Why is that? And Atisha responded saying, yes, it is true. And the main reason is because they perceive their spiritual teachers as human beings. They see their lamas as humans or as people. They don't see them as the Buddha. And so as long as there's not that perception of pure devotion that views one's spiritual teacher as the Buddha, then it will be difficult to really receive the blessings and to give rise to authentic realization. And so he said that as all of the qualities of the paths and bhumis and realization arises mainly in dependence upon this single condition, which is devotion to the Guru. And so depending on whatever level of perception, the way that we perceive the spiritual teacher directly corresponds with how we receive the blessings. So as it says in the words of my perfect teacher, if there's excellent devotion or highest level devotion, there's highest level realization. If there's middling level devotion, then there's middling realization.
Te indu tene tandande jobanche de songun de songdo de je songbar. Penna tene ta churangi lama zawe lama tela tene nge lama de ta chanchu samba chimboji sambe 대바 대가 점지 여바 있나 되는 텔라 때네 제 차자 친구 또 발라 소바제 두 말에 얘는 주랑 줄라 chanchuga sem testes jetoya pengres tene tena jin delaya te sji deba shu chewa chene ta nge lamande sanje turwe gu ngusuin sambeki tene ji deba da yichi ji yoba yina dela tene chona nekap neko ki parche testes pa shibar chewa tene pengres 다 tene delaya tene mugu shu chewa chene 아직 주랑게 되네 자벨라마테 산지 롱주 조베 꾸문에지 삼백이 이치 템보지 제와이나 되네 텔라 때네 주랑 옌던 자침보테는 줍토그레스 이나야 다동 자자침부터 버제 도마레스 원나 되네 자자침부터 버제야라 라마라 무구 간데지고 그래서나 되네 주구 도진 창 의이 삼백이 되네 무구 다 텐레지 카드 제와이나야 tene chacha chenpo toba chea ta ngo chubares o tende indu tobegi nyamlen tamche te tene lame mugu gi jisun rogres o ta tende songbare
And so Lord Jigten Sumgana also says that for example, if you see your spiritual teacher as a great bodhisattva, then you know, which is, you know, quite a certain level of development of faith, then you won't be able to realize Mahamudra based on that, but it will benefit in that, and have the effect of enabling you or causing you to generate some bodhicitta in your mind stream. So if you view your teacher as a bodhisattva, then the effect of that is that it helps to generate bodhicitta. He said, if you view your spiritual teacher as a nirmanakaya emanation, you know, as a Buddha, nirmanakaya emanation of the Buddha, then it still won't necessarily help to cause you to give rise to realization of Mahamudra, but it will have the benefit of clearing away some temporary obstacles, or, you know, deflecting obstacles and clearing away adverse conditions on your path. And then with your devotion a little bit more developed, if you have a strong faith in the Guru as a Sambhogakaya emanation, if you see the spiritual teacher as a Sambhogakaya form, then this still won't lead to realization of Mahamudra, but it will enable you to accomplish the vast benefit of sentient beings. So then how is it that devotion to the spiritual teacher can lead to the realization of Mahamudra? That is if one has the pure perception of the spiritual teacher as being the Dharmakaya, Vajradhara Dharmakaya, in actuality, the Buddha or the Guru is seen to be the Dharmakaya. And then that leads to realizing Mahamudra, that level of devotion alone.
Tene lama gombe kawla gomsegi chi ne tela yang tene tese chebar yungre ten du zane nganzo pena lama lan cheba pulgu yona ten lama denjin nam khane tsur sosola tsur shar kordewa o tene gungu re sungdawa denjin nam kala gomba chebe kawla cheba burbe kawla tene yang ji sosola lame kusung toge chelab nyurdo togu yona tene lama rangi chizudu gomba jiwo zudu gomba 대체도 배제 단단데 라마 지오로 gomba 송도와 tene ngazo tengen zeng wangurna lamam 되는 gomba te zo sungbiwa 어떤데 tene ya 다단디 찾아 전부 그 또바 뉴르도 줄을 제고 요나 tene 라마 닝게난도 gomba 어떤데 송비를 저번에 송고 라마 닝게난도 gom
데 차자침
차쟁게 또바 제고 요나 tene 라마 닝게 질도 gomba tene ya 지 냠낸 텐데 조윤도 자네 자당 롱게 텐데 파체 텐데 중앙이나 라마 텐데 대외기 오도 gomba 텐데 송베 파체 세버제베지도 라마 대오도 gomba스 다 텐데 지단 송송 만다와 망보레 테네
so 공tat에서 고 톰송가인스나 데 진랍 뉴르드 토비아 치츠 얘네양 데 팅게제 왕코르 데 되나
팅게제 왕코르 되는 다와 텐데 저는 조 가스나 라마라테네 초사 연라 듬바테 조 체 제대로 와데 텐데 초사야 지는 되는 수로 gomba 테네 양지 진랍 뉴르드 토고인데 라마 지우 그쪽으로 gomba
그래서
또 받지네 닝게지도 gomba 파제서야 지도 대외가 올라 gomba 테네 테나진 저번에 내송 송찌기나라 니모 지우 조수 gom 세모 닝게지도 gom 송바래 니메 콘라 테네 라마 지조도 gomba 생게 가라 소소 녀외 가라 라마 닝게난도 gomba 어떻게세네 양 텐솔라 때네 제 또바제야 당 파체 모양알라 소바텐데 그 구바 체버진 요 송바래 로와 텐도다 조 가스나지 라마 드베게 드탑 소소 나 송바나진 체네트네 gom고 요래 텐도 텐데
And so there are also different ways when practicing different forms of Guru Yoga, different ways that one meditates on the Lama. So, but generally speaking, there are these categories that when, for instance, making offerings or gathering the accumulations, then one visualize the Lama in the space in front. And so, for example, when receiving the empowerments through the practice of the samadhi empowerment, mainly we're visualizing the Lama in the space in front, but we're both receiving empowerment, but also mainly the focus is on the 7 branches. And then in order to swiftly receive the blessings, then we visualize the Lama meditating above, or we visualize the Lama above our crown. And then in order to swiftly realize Mahamudra, we meditate on the Lama abiding at the heart. To clear away obstacles in the context of like the channels and winds, then one mainly meditates on the Guru abiding below the navel. Then also there's the instruction that Lord Jigten Sumgön gives, which is during the day to meditate on the Lama abiding at the crown, and then at night while lying down or sleeping to meditate on the Lama at the heart. And so in this way, by meditating, practicing the Guru Yoga at all times, it helps to increase realization and to prevent or dispel obstacles. So there are these different, or I think actually that's what this, with regard to this specific instruction from Lord Jigten Sumgun. And then, but apart from that, of course, there are the different unique instructions that are specific to like individual sadhanas or particular Guru Yoga practices or sadhanas that are particular to whatever that practice is. That's all. So we can take a break here. The Chutsukat. Sumchu? Okay. So for 30 minutes, we can return. 30 minutes.
다되네 라메 nenjur shebe kabla ta lama gomsur song do wa tan dinang la lama chiur gomba song do wa chiur tane rang lama ta so so rani gi tane ji deba dang o da mugu chese ge tane zawe lama teni ngugu ko song do wa ngugu ko song do tane lama te gi ngugu ge rang shin te sanje tane gui ji ge rang shin yin ba ro wa lama gui ji ge rang shin yin ba tenen dila garchen bosin de sungdo jidang anzo lama gombe kabla chamcham lama tane taji dorjin chang namba gomba tende sungres yene yang une sosogi 직 대바당 초와 슈체와 제고나 소소게 대바체세 라마테 단대게 꼭 간대요 같은데 전에 직 gomba이나 양 참참 무 슈체와 제기를 송도 투데 주거인바 tene namba de tanda rangla ta che karin chishu ge tene lama o teni samjaba ina tene ya mugu ge tene shukde de chewa yore songdo ta tendu tenren ro chi ro lama ngu ku tene kumdo de kala marwen dang chawa kar mar songdo tene chani nyambar chawa tene shabdur je chedong ge juba ta tene chi soso ge chiwolo ge ba tene samgo re songre
So with this section then of the Guru Yoga, so then we're meditating on the Guru here at our crown as the method for generating strong faith and devotion, and the Guru is the embodiment of the four kayas. And so as Gyaltsen Rinpoche says, sometimes it's helpful to meditate on the Guru in the form of Vajradhara, but then sometimes as like a skillful method for really contacting the feeling of faith that is connected with like the personal embodiment of the spiritual teacher, then sometimes we can visualize them in their ordinary form. So as a means to really, inspire faith. So the essence of their mind is Dharmakaya, but we can think of them, actually in the form that we're familiar with, of our kind spiritual teacher. But here we're visualizing, so we're above our crown is the Svabhavika of our Guru, rosy white in color, seated with crossed legs, with hands in the mudra of evenly resting. And so here we visualize in this way.
Tene ta tendregi lama gombeki lama tegi tene ne namle ta wezir soño dawa chiur om karbo rembar amarbo togar hong tingas tandi oa hong sumbote zo nazo pena chujigma tene pabgu yuna tambo chode yongsegi yongkongi chumikji guruwa chunguji guruwa Petina shin lame kusung toge tene chilaw yongsegi ta sabendrawre teindu zane lama tege tene jiwul la yege om karbon semba Dembar a marbo tugala hong tenga tene tendegi tachi a hong sumbo tela ngarang chogi mugu che solwa kase tamnaya te zamje tene lamegi ne sumbo tene wezir shuk chimbun chowa ta wezir kase choda mancho de soso nga chogi tebala raleba ta tene ji gugurwa pena mendrawo chigina kochi shinglu tene long yuwa ina ta medepe shuk chera chera mbari yungurwa tena shinto tene nganzogi ta chi sorwa tap mugu che yondu tene lamegi ne sumge yege sumbo tele tene wezern chu gure ta wezer tran de sondo rando wezern chu sondo wa jiwu om karbo tele wezer karbon chuba dembar a marbo tene wezer marbon chuba toge hong tenga tene wezer ngombon chuba o tendechi da tende wezern choshin Tela tene ngarang choge ta chi lunga ye sum ge tone tene sorwa ta mugu che yundu Tene tele ta wangje lemba te tu yung gosum kupe sorwa taben tus.
And so, in this way, then we meditate on the Guru, and then at the Guru's crown is a white Om, at their throat is a red Ah, and at their heart is a blue Hung, radiating light rays. And by the power of devotion, then the light rays from these three syllables of body, speech, and mind issue forth. And so it is like these syllables, these seed syllables are like the source, kind of like the source of water is maybe like a spring. So for instance, from the spring, then you have the water coming. And so that's how we can think of these syllables of enlightened body, speech, and mind, that they're like the spring, from which the blessings issue forth, like the source sort of, or the source point. So as we supplicate, then in dependence upon our degree of faith and devotion, then that is what causes the light to stream out. And so the faith and devotion is like fuel. It's like the wind that feeds the fire, that kind of causes the light rays to stream out stronger. So for instance, if you have a fire and then you add wood to the fire and then you add some air to that fire, then it causes the fire to blaze stronger. And so that wind is the in this analogy is like the devotion. So through the devotion, then we supplicate, and the light rays issue forth from the seed syllables, and the light corresponds with the respective seed syllable. So from the Om syllable, the white Om syllable at the forehead, white light rays issue forth. From the Ah at the red Ah at the throat, red light rays issue forth, and from the blue Hung at the heart, blue light rays issue forth, and then in dependence upon that, then we receive as they enter into us, we receive the four empowerments.
다 된제 전에 되네 소르왔다 연도 전에 다 소르왔다 바 되게 찐전에 되네 라메기 지우 이게 옴 게 버스들 되게 되는 가랑조 변나 지우로 포 민sam라 된 텔라테네 되네 르기 고네 사베 디립 탐제 장 되네 왕게 토너서는 당와이나 되네 펌페 왕 톱네 다지 제름게 라 곰발라 되네 왕자 토바 어떤데 되네 되나신 아유게 나기 드바장 텔라테네 되네 왕 상웨 왕 톱 되네 홍규기 얘기 드바장 텔라테네 시라비 시고 왕 톱. 다테인도 데 상왕당 시르완이 본다지나 되네 조 단조 톱잖아 나로 주루라서 반 천제게 조름 곰발라더니 왕 톱이 유송거와 세마다 집에 조름 곰발라 왕 톱. 되네 되는 타마 라마 오드셔네 되네 랑게 지원에마 태명도 자네 dim니 파차다 제바 장네 다 왕시바 되네 용수 줘봐 다 토바 어떤데 선나다는 되네 왕시바 토연도 자네 단 되게 되네 조름 세메 곰바 어떤데 라더니 왕 토바 이 송게다 된대기 되네 메바 양세 치야다 네게 전부래 송바래
So then, just as it says here, then as white light rays issue forth from the Om, purifying the body. Through that, we receive the base empowerment. And then, so the obscurations and negativities of the body are purified, and one receives the base empowerment. One is then also empowered to meditate on the enlightened form of the deity. Then from the ah syllable, the speech as red light rays issue forth, one receives the secret empowerment. And then from the blue hung at the heart level, then as blue light rays issue forth and dissolve into us, and we receive the wisdom awareness empowerment or the knowledge empowerment. And then through these three, through these two, specifically the secret empowerment and the wisdom awareness empowerment, then this is connected with or empowers one to practice the completion stage practices or yoga, the completion stage yogas with characteristics such as the 6 yogas of Naropa. And then with the final step or the final empowerment where the guru melts into light and dissolves into us and our 2 obscurations are purified, then we receive through that we receive the 4th empowerment. And that also then becomes that which is connected with the completion stage without characteristic. So we become empowered to meditate on the completion stage without characteristics. So in this way, we meditate again and again, receiving the 4 empowerments, and practicing in this way.
Chidanam ju yewa sum zamja sung yore. Tani ye wang sayon du zane, tani ngarang zu tachi lamang tsanyi da denpa chigin dune. Tani pena yidam kolo den choke wang tabu, wang ngu su, tani shiwa tela ye wang sayo ta tela tomar, tani wang jigin ngotu chayon guyruwa. Lamang tsanyi da denpa chigin dune, tani ngan zu yidam gil la pena kolo den choke tabu. Tendregi jinkola tene wang tomar shuya chigirwa tena ye wang sagir tangbo ngochu chiyade. Ta tendregi wang di top chane tena namsha jundu nganzo soso ge tene tadandi tandane wang shi lembegi nyamlen chidawa dina jinda tene choban chiden sungongi tengen zengi wang kurgi nyamlen tawo yina tensola lamgi wang sagir. Kayinsana ta soso ge wang shi ge tuanda ta nyamlen chigir ngus. Tenen de nyamlen salangwala tene tar drewu kuji kompang toba tela tenen drewu wang toba sayirwa o tende indu zane tere te indu tan di lame kuyi jinkola tene tene wangshi yongsu zoba shuyate ape kechengbu shiwen songbare joban jiden songon kiyang tena je sanje ki jugi nangla songyongdowa lame kuyi jinkoro ki nangne tene wangshi yongsu zoba lengu res tati judegi pe nyingbo yin songdowa.
So gongta de la gare
lame kuyi
or yine yang de pe
sangha ju nangwa sanje ki ju gi nangwa tene lame kuyi jinkola tene wangshi yongsu zoba chi shugu res tati jude tamche ki tene nyingbo yin songdowa tene tenane labardo ma ju tamche ki gongba nyingbo labardo tene ma ju ki gongba yin songbare 마중 콜로 덴초기 주기 공부. 어 근데 제인도 전에 근데 땡연장이 왕래 제가 단들 땡연장 왕래 세계로 왔던데라. 디 간소 라마 곰네 라메 콜라테네 근데 지 왕질랜들 지단 땡쟁 왕고리안 세계로 와. 어 텐데 근데 배 개청 못는데 제인 바래.
So there's also different kind of categories, or that we can think of empowerment also in terms of the ground path and fruition. So the ground empowerment is that which we receive, for instance, from a qualified spiritual teacher and person, and in dependence upon, for instance, the mandala of the deity, such as the mandala of Chakrasamvara. And so that ritual empowerment where we receive it initially, in person or for the first time, becomes the ground empowerment. And then once that is received, when we practice taking the 4 empowerments on our own, through, for instance, this practice, or when doing, for instance, the samadhi empowerment from Lord Jigten Sumgan, then that becomes the path empowerment. So we actually practice or habituate the practice of taking empowerment or receiving empowerment again and again through like methods such as these. And then once through the practice of the path empowerment, then the final outcome of this is the fruition of receiving or manifesting the four kayas. So once the fruition of the four kayas is attained, then that becomes the fruition empowerment. And so in this way, then one practices, or there are these kind of three aspects to empowerment of the ground, path, and fruition. And also, as it says in the Tantras, that the independence upon the mandala of the Guru's form, you should receive the four empowerments in their entirety, as this is the enlightened intent or the essence of all the tantras. Especially, it is said in regards to the mother tantras. And so, in this way, it's very important to incorporate or have this aspect of one's path of practice being, receiving the four empowerments, through practices such as this, or for instance, the samadhi empowerment.
Tene te indu tan dente ki tene lame ki kui jingkola tene wangshi dente si yangne yangda lemba ina tene te la tanda lopon peman jungne kin de songdawa chinlab rinpa sum topju yore songbare chinlab sum chinlab thangbo de karre sayondu zane lama yangne yangdo gomshin tene te la tene wangshi yangne yangda lemba ina tene ti topji tene mugu de ya shuk chir ro re chinlab rinpa thangbo de tene bezol mebe mugu jule che tu re songbare chinlab thangbo de tene te na shendo chinlab niba de karre sondu zane taji chu nyamne kanre chige tole mikba chewa ina ya mikba de salbo tang tempo che tu re namdo ge yo ma songwa namdo ge ma yo ba nyamong ba ge sem chu chu ma dang wa o tendu mikba karela ina ya tene sem de pe se wo cha tu re te chinlab niba re song re tene chinlab rinpa sumba de la karre sana tene chaja chenpo la soba tan dona chi zoba chenpo sana ta meng sosoro tanda chibarwa o tendu kandar toban chodo chupa tene jule cheya o tenrege tene chinlab yung re ti chidu sana lama la tene wanshi la ya de pe kaya chenpo yin sumba re
And then also, Padmasambhava says that there are these benefits to, or these sort of three stages of receiving the blessings or development through receiving the blessings by taking the four empowerments again and again. So the first one is that by meditating again and again on the Lama and receiving the four empowerments, then the devotion becomes very strong. So the power of one's devotion grows and eventually develops into effortless devotion. The second stage is that whatever visualization that you are practicing, that visualization becomes very stable and uninterrupted or undisturbed or unwavering, due to, it cannot be wavered by kind of the movement of discursive thought or conceptual proliferation. So the mind, the kind of ebbs and flows of the mind can't disturb the stability of the visualization. The visualization becomes very clear. And then the third stage is that whether Mahamudra or Dzogchen, that realization of the view arises in the mind stream. So that's the third stage, is that it leads to realization of the view. And so this is the way; these are the ways in which this process of receiving empowerment is so important.
Tene tena shin choban che ten sungu ke tene sapchu ke nang la lame ki kula tene wan shi yang ne yang de lemba ta tingen zeng ke wan kur ki mikpa te chi du jun che me ba che to ba yinam tene toba ju le che la tsik me song do ka le yung ma res tene te ma se be sangha ki ta ngang zu nam jun wang mang bo shu yo ro wang mang bo shu yo re tene chi tam sik mang bo kelen chi yo re ten du tam sik nam jang la sam ta wa yin sam je me che bar wa tam sik nam jang mang bo re ina tam sik tham che zu dor do ba yin na tene ta dan di chi de ta we ki tam sik dang je be ki tam sik ni na du re song do wa yana chi tab ta wa dang je ba yana tab da shirap tende ki tam sik ni na du re song ge re te yin du sa ne 다 된로 탐색 따외기 탐색은 죄배기 탐색이나 인다 야나 탑기 탐색 시럽기 탐색이나 인다 된대기 탐색 라쮸 쇼르와당 탐색 냠바던데 지 중앙이나 땡인쟁기 원그르기 미반데기 근데 탐색 소르추 투요 손도와 탐색 냠바 탐색 봐 셀네 어 된대베 배운 친구이 마송요레 대인도산에 단단한서 땡인쟁기 원그르기 티지유로 완전 된 송고 대나한테 송용도와 어 텐데 인도 tene nga zo lama gombe kabla tene chi wanji lenne tene oda mugu ge tona wanji lenne ke chembo o tene chi yingi yusare ti chi du zane jidan chi da nga den soso la nyamso len yundu zane tablam ke chembo re yungdo wa ten du garchen mo chi sonan di lamen ne jur go nga den nyamso lembe kabla ta chu nga yorwa chu nga botel 라다지 냠술 렌솔 뺀 잠으로 망보 여러와 디톤에 쪼 개체슈레레레 개체슈레레레 요송도와 된데 빼나더니 장주의 셈게 감다진 단지 시원하지 장바다 닝지게 로양의 양도 제야 드네 테나시다 드네 단단디 라멘 nen줄 감다지나 무구야의 양도 제네 드네지 완시 양의 양도 래야데 달라루기 닝부레스 대송거래. 근데 단지 예담 감다지나 투소게 이게 싫다고도 야나양도 살다야. 근데 개침으로 송은도와
그래.
예담 감다지나 투소 소이요와 텔레미 받지야 개침으로 송은도와 다 드네 대나신 단단데 라멘낸 줄금 감다지나 무구체네 소르완답신 투이세야.
소다당
무근체 소르완데 투단이 세야. 다 투이 세워서도 왕지백이 미바체와 들어와. 왕지백이 미바 들어와 되는 사버도 왕지바 들어와. 어떤데 된도 그 냉가르르르도와 쪼쪼르 어떤데 숨바르 된도 산에 된다는 din나나야 쪼 라메게 꼴라되는 왕실렘백이 미바데 다 마테스 십잔도 호치나 송인도와 어떤데
And so, so it is also stated in Lord Jigten Sumgön's collection of profound teachings that independence upon the guru's form or the enlightened form of the spiritual teacher, then one can, through receiving these four empowerments through this samadhi, the empowerment of samadhi, then it will be, one won't have any difficulty giving rise to realization in one's mind stream. And so we have all of these different empowerments, different empowerments in secret mantra Vajrayana, and together with those empowerments come all sorts of sacred commitments or samayas. And there are all, a lot of different samayas to uphold, but all of those samayas can be subsumed into mainly two. Either we can refer to it as the samaya of view and conduct, or the samaya of method and wisdom. And so whether we refer to it as the samaya of view and conduct or the samaya of method and wisdom, essentially this practice of receiving the four empowerments through the power of samadhi has the ability to repair any breaches or faults of these samayas that may have been incurred. And so in particular, also, this is said in regards to the samadhi empowerment that comes from Lord Jigten Sumgun. So when we meditate on the Lama and we take the empowerments, then through the power of devotion, we receive those empowerments, and any kind of faults of samaya become restored, or the samayas become restored, any faults become repaired. And so there, in each of the different practices of the five-fold path, there are many different aspects and qualities that are developed in the context of each of these, but also there is a sort of the specific or unique quality that is connected with each one specifically. So for instance, if it is bodhicitta, mainly the focus or the most important aspect is in cultivating love and compassion. And in the Guru Yoga, the most important aspect is, developing devotion again and again, receiving the four empowerments. And just in the same way as, say, with Yidam, the practice of the Yidam, it is most important to focus on the life force of the deity being the seed syllable, like the visualization of the seed syllable. Here, the most important are these three: the devotion, the supplication, and then the merging of mind with enlightened awareness. So the merging of like one's own mind and the mind of the guru, or the mixing of these two. And that is achieved through this process of the four empowerments. And so in any case, this is how we can meditate on the Guru Yoga and, as it is presented here, with a little, somewhat detailed explanation.
하더니 간저 집에 나는 단디 지 슈잖아. 다 집밥 찾아친 보러 나 찾아친 보텔라 다 토마를 드네 르게 내당 semgin ne ni yung gu sare ta ta mo le ne de tereng pe che shu yen de sarwa ate inde namjung nganzo number nanze gi chu dun sene sungurwa ta thumong gi kala number nanze gi chu dun sene tani lo gi jusro de la mandawa tani dun samje yung gu yore tani yang ji choban ji ten sungong gi sung ten de nang ne lo gi jusro de la je ndo ten de yang sung ja ba yore tene tadan de marba loje sung tende nanne yang lugi jusu nga tende yang sung yure ta teste sa mandawa yungre de ina ta chi namju yongda ando che du zane ten di namnang gi chu dun sa ya ta te den ma sung yung yure tan de yang tene ke chembure kain sana namju de sung ndo wa tendre lugi tolan rik sung wa ina tene toba sam gi tola chigre sung yure tendre lugi tolan riwa ina tene toba sem tola che yung res te sung du zane ta lu ge ji ndu tang yin na re mi ge ta tang yin na re tene ji ta ten su che de ji ngone che den ji cha song yin na tene sem tola yang toba che ya le la wa toba che ya gen tun chen zong ba o tene ji yung re sung ge re no te yin du zane ten de na ta cha chen gi ka bla lu ne te song yung do wa o te re.
So then we get to the section of Mahamudra. So first is in the beginning establishing the abode of the body, and then establishing the abode of the mind, or the abiding of the body and the abiding of the mind. So first, with the abiding of the body, this is generally taught as assuming the posture of the seven-point posture of Vairochana. And so there are the 7 points, that are specific to this, or that are spoken of here. Also, there's a tradition where Lord Jigten Sumgun also mentions an 8th, so he describes them as 8 points. And then in the tradition of Marpa, they're usually taught as 5 points. But that which is kind of most widely known are the 7 points, what we refer to as the 7-point posture. And this is very important, the posture, because it, in dependence upon the kind of the auspicious interdependence or the interdependence of the body, then it also there's a connection to the arising of realization in the mind, which is merely even based on the posture. So in dependence upon that the posture, there's a certain degree of realization that arises in the mind in dependence on the posture alone. And so the abiding or the posture of the body and the gaze also, this greatly assists the realization that arises in the mind. It becomes easier to give rise to realization based on the posture of the body and the gaze. And so this is why in the context of Mahamudra, it's important to assume the proper posture.
다 르네 당부 텔란드는 dorji 지종 송도와 다 dorji 지종 체윤도 전에 되게 되네 그반저한테 안저변나 강바 dorji 지종 소윤도 지당가랑 졸라다지 르게나라 롱 카만자와 만자와 무슨거와 변나 투르스르기 롱 세야지 되네 되나신도 야 제는 종기 진주기 롱 세야 다든데기 롱기 자외기 롱아 세로와 근데 인도 전에 다 텐수 제대 롱마다바 되네 롱마다바도 마다베 롱텐수 되네 다단데다 자 우메나나 주 심투송아이나 주투송아이나 되네 롱탐지 이시기 롱고올라 로그레 송거와 다 대인도 전에 제 강바 dorji 지종 제제바 이시기 롱라 주투야 텐데 용그레 송거 대인도 전에 강바 dorji 지종 제제바 되게 tene yang che ngang zo mang tulla tulsargi long sigirwa tulsargi long tenzo tene yang che ume nang zu tsuya la tene tab dewa nuba chewa tene yungre songre ten du zane tene gangbo dorji jirong se tere.
So the first of these 7 points is, as it says here, our legs are in the Vajra posture. So first is the Vajra position or the Vajra posture. And the benefit of this in particular is that so we have in our body, in the subtle body, there are a lot of different types of winds that are circulating. So for instance, there are like the evacuating winds and the ascending winds. There are mainly, 5 root winds that are spoken of. And so these different winds, as they are purified, this occurs through their entering into the central channel. And when the winds are gathered into and held in the central channel, then they can be transformed into primordial wisdom winds, or the wisdom winds. They become wisdom winds instead of the nature of defiled winds. And so in particular, this point of the posture, which is the legs folded in the Vajra position, this mainly brings the evacuating winds, or makes it easier for the evacuating winds to enter into the central channel. And so that point of the legs folded in the Vajra position makes this gives some power or assistance to this process.
Nyima tela lu sawa sondo ta lu sawa su de zane tene penang zo jab ge tene Gyaltsen de ma gugu ma yin ba ya chang chang chene de to ba ina tin de la Gyaltsen mo jin de sondo zobu de ran xin ge chang chang chene de to song wa ina de long de ran xin ge de wa wo le yin wo sondo long pum pa chen ran xin ge cha yin ge res mixe ge be zo ma chen na ya long pum chen de ran xin ge le yin ge res o tene sondo de yin du zane tene Nyima tela lu sawa se tere.
And so then the second point here is that the body is straight. So mainly what that means is that the spine is completely erect, completely straight. And as Gyaltsen Rinpoche says, the benefit of this is that when the body is straight, this enables the winds to naturally gather below the navel. So sort of all on its own, the vase breath or the gentle vase breath starts to happen. Without needing to even exert any effort. There's just this natural gathering of the winds below the navel that occurs due to the straightness of the spine, the straightness of the body.
Tene tenanjin drembati so gusong do ma te so gugu. Te chidu san dremba ma gugu cheba tege tanda dele pengere song kain sana nanzo ta löge nange long se te tanda nganzo chi khane thön ya ke ungde long rapare long thamonde samda nyamdo tene rote ge yore te indi zane sam long de la semge ta se do semge shya de ta de long de re song ge yore te indi nganzo samge na la tene chi zongwe namdo tang zimbe namdo je indi zane de da nyamdo long ni yong ge zongzeng long se ge se te indi zane dremba ma te so gugu che wa ina tene namdo zungzeng ge namdo ro se ge za de zo ma te so nen de ba na jin cha yong re te indu zane tene ngan zo namdo de ma te so shuk chung wa tene yong re so te indu dremba go wa stere.
So then the next point of the posture is, here it says the chin tucked in. So as the chin is slightly tucked in, then the benefit of this is that, so first of all, there's, what we're speaking of here are the subtle winds. So the wind that is like the breath, for instance, that we breathe, through the mouth or the nose, that is a coarse wind. But the subtle winds are very connected with the mind. In fact, it is said that the subtle winds are the horse that the mind rides. And so in particular, there are there's the mental proliferation that is sort of like subject-based, based on sort of the apprehension of a subject. And then there's the mental proliferation that's also based on object-based. So there's the subject-object dualistic fixation winds. And so this particular point of the posture helps to sort of suppress the channels through which these winds that are connected with the mental proliferation based on subject-object fixation sort of travel or course. These winds course through these channels. And so then through the sort of slight, the pressure, the suppression of those channels, then the proliferation of discursive thought becomes diminished.
No, tene pungba jangba sondwa pungba pha te se jangjang che ya tege tene nganjon de tachi namjun gom tende che yong du chane yang chamchang nganjo pe samlu busu tobu chane tene yang chi long ya par yong ya ning ka tende yong gurwa long ya shu chimbu je yong gur te yong du chane pungba jang ja ba tege tene long ma nen tu ro sondwa tende ge gu ba yore sonre
Kare
pungba jangba dewa tegi nanzo namjo da gom je du sana peshir chang gurwa samnang pe ngang sabda shenang chen long yang par gurwa tene yang tela tene samde sebo mewa ta namdo ndram da che gurwa ten du sana tene pungba pha jangjang chen dewa ina tegi tene long de ma rangshin gen ne tu re song ge tene tela tene samde shiwa da lo cha tu yal peng re song re
So then the next point is that the shoulders are broad. So the shoulders are broad, and the kind of the elbows are kind of extended out from the body. The chest is forward. And the shoulders being broad here so there's the benefit of, in general, when we meditate, sometimes there's what we refer to as like an increase of wind that can maybe even be quite scary, or certain things like strong kind of fears or anxiety can arise, or the mind becomes unclear, and so the shoulders being broad and the elbows extended out from the body like this has the benefit of just subduing the wind in general, allowing it to settle so that the mind becomes calm and relaxed and sort of naturally settled. Kimbo, do you want to say? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah.
냠샤 때워도 자와세도와 다 냠샤 라바 라니 냠버 잡아들어와 땡서 때와고라 되는 냠샤 체윤도 되는 양 던데 제바 텔라 때네 되니 제 제와라 되니 팽그레 송거 나서 단단데 다 두모라서 검백가서 되는 르르 죄래 되네 되니 대와 제와 되는 송도와 어테인도 자네 되니 죄랑신기 제와라 되니 팽그레 송 냠샤 때워도 자스.
And then the next point is that the hands are in the mudra of evenly resting. So the hands are resting in meditative equipoise below in the lap, sort of resting below the navel. And so the benefit of this is that it helps to generate warmth at that point below the navel. So there's the benefit of this point also, that has a particular connection with, for instance, the Tummo practices, because based on that point of the posture, there's naturally some warmth and some bliss that starts to arise at that point below the navel.
남낭 추드나네 참바다 닌제다 시네드 조금베 까블라 드네 믹 나츠르 와파 세요와 믹드마 데스 나이츠라마 와파 송게르와 다탄다 차친다 다 조친라서 와 디니 따와 금베 까블라 드네 믹드마 쯤이야 요 말에 송레 파 테가르다고 그래 송레 딘데 따당나 자스나 파 테가르 하레 따와 대체도 자네 드네 파무트벤 데송도와 믹 맞음네 곰 자와테 드네 베 곰 탐체레 드네 제반도 봐와인 송바르다
곰 탐체
곰바 탐체레 드네 제반도 봐봐 믹men 좀베 nenjur케네 제반 봐 송레 땡도 자네 믹 문좀바게 믹 맞음베게 nenjur데 nenjur 탐체는 애들이 제반도 봐와레스 땡도 믹 좀데 메바드네 하레와 스타트 대신에 되는 따우레 스타트에서 되는 차징이 까브로와 따당하자스 되는 제단 남주에 아직 참참 먼저 맹아 당 양텐데 카시 검술 카시에 깔라 미 남칼았다 왔는데 용거래 텐텐한신도 차징도 조징이 깝텐데라 남케기 님의 외슬라 소발았다는 고미한테 용도와 배제 답으로 뭐지 깜봉나라 차징이 깔라냐 님의 외슬라다는 고미한테
수기 까봉
pena tabu ki kambum nana ta dzogchen gausu tene kasanandi thile da theten la so ba tan gom ya thre sung da wa te na jin tan da chachen ka la ya tende sung ja ban do tabu kambum nana ina chik nyonyong chi ma da man do ten de nam jin pheche tan de dzogchen ge chechu ma do chachen na mewa na jin tende sung ken do ina tabu kambum nana do tende ten de da khandra yang sam sam chi ta da mandawa tende goya sung ge yore ta ina tan dan de ne 따당라자 태가를 되네 봐 직다 맥 좀됨다 만다당 다 지금 미마 좀 발라서 받네 많이 받아 조 하래 따고래 송래 따이난 데서 간줄 내 담보 발라 데스가래 하고 요래 맥당 차도 전에 탐진 통대기로 유르 참만 통대기래 통대잖아더니 섬다나 쇼노에 년가 용으로 와 텐데래 텐데 담보 신의 금백 감다지는 맥 좀는 약도 와 그냥 lan통기 감다보다 더 차ချင်း의지 금백 감다지는 맥 따당 제고 그래서 봐
And so then the next point is that the eyes are resting in the gaze. So what is meant here is that so there's a difference with regard to how the gaze is usually described in certain contexts with regard to the 7-point posture of Vairochana. So for instance, when meditating on love and compassion, or meditating on calm abiding, or shamatha, then it is the gaze is that it should be cast, down off the tip of the nose. But then in the context of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, or when meditating on the view, then the gaze is usually directed into the space in front. So one is just gazing directly into space. So as Pamodrupa has said, like this is, the most superior kind of, or elevated of gazes when meditating, not, with the eyes cast downward, or not with the eyes closed, but with the gaze, directed into the space in front. So he says the yogin who meditates without closing his eyes is the kind of exceptional yogin, or the most exceptional yogin. And so there are different pith instructions regarding the gaze. So looking into the space in front, there are also, for instance, the different gazes that are connected with for the practices of Dzogchen that involve, for instance, looking at the light rays of the sun. But actually also in Gampopa's collected teachings, there's mention of this, in the context of Mahamudra, actually looking into or gazing at the sun rays in such a way that's really similar to how it is spoken of in the context of Dzogchen practices that focuses on the different spheres, or bindus, and so forth. Here, there's not a lot that is mentioned. It's a little bit brief, and so some say, oh, this is actually referring to Dzogchen, but it is, in any case, it is mentioned here in the context of Mahamudra and Gampopa's Kabum. And so there are many different methods of gazing that involve, like, looking directly into the space in front, looking and gazing into the sky, looking at directing one's gaze to like light rays or light beams, and also in some cases meditating with the eyes closed. But here in this case, when we don't meditate with our eyes closed, but we have the gaze is lifted, it's higher, and it's cast in front. So this is maybe difficult for beginners, because when we're looking directly in front, we see all sorts of objects, we see movement, and so this can be really cause us to lose our concentration. So if we don't have a really strongly developed meditative concentration, then this is maybe not so beneficial, or can pose an obstacle to the meditation in the beginning. But during the main practice, here in the context of Mahamudra, then the gaze is cast directly into the space in front.
Tene jeze jungse drill songdowa ta jeye zemo ya gen jarwas namju namna chuduna te songyowa tan di jidan namju tumung ke chando shewa ina kanana tane jin chimage gange mangbu tege mare songdowa ta tandan di zo chewa karasana jeze yandane chene gena ya jana ti se drwa ina jege zemo ti se drwa ina tela tene ngaran soge zupo nana yobe nyingi zede ya kale kalendere chine ya chena tengure songre tanda nga zo nyingde yorwa ta zede ya gena ya jagum tene kale nyingi zede ya chena tene chine choyungre
The nunegi
nyingde ta de ko chi chine zedang kurang ge zala ndrewa chi yujire ta tendu di jum senge tene 남도기 요와들 마 슈충으로 장으로 심 제지바데 제야라더니 팽그레 송거다 아 지기는 다 메베톤의 배제 닝야 젠도 파용 위지레 지치나 문에서나 파용 거 이렇든 다 됐어 온다.
And so then the next point is that the tongue is brought up a little. Or another, also sometimes is said like the tongue is resting on the palate, against the teeth. And so the benefit of this that is usually spoken of is that like ordinarily we produce a lot of saliva, so having this position of the tongue raised, and resting against the palate helps to diminish the production of saliva. But then there's also this instruction that is mentioned that this particular point has this benefit of lifting the heart somewhat, like raising, so we have like actually the physical heart, and then the channels or the kind of arteries or veins that come out of that heart, and the tip of the heart is a little bit not completely raised up. So there it is said that through this position of the tongue, it gradually lifts the top or the kind of peak of the heart in such a way that then there's like benefit in the kind of connecting of the channels in such a way that it has the effect of diminishing the movement of discursive thought. The movement of conceptual proliferation becomes diminished, it becomes calmed through this point of the tongue resting against the palate. So he said, now whether this happens with the heart, like in terms of like visualization, or if it actually happens to the physical heart, we don't know. We can all sort of think about it and decide.
지치는 닝게 쯤이야 채는 문에야 칼레야 다시 라와나 진텐데시는 닝게 째데 채나야 카코로 용게지로와 다 된다 대제야 깨는 전도 전에 배제되네 리포트 제지도 네발 팽게레스 남도고 요와데 흉총용 그래 송도와 다 그바조 데로와.
So the main thing is that so as the physical heart is usually like a little bit tilted down through this point, as it kind of raises, the point of the heart raises up, then there's this effect that it has in assisting the mind or awareness to rest with single pointed focus, and it causes then the diminishment of discursiveness. So there's that benefit.
오다 되게 되네 루네데 슈슨 바트네 지린도 중세 딜스 오트나잖아 드링.
And so then this covers these main points or aspects of the posture, the abode of the body, and so we can conclude here for today.
So your dedication.
So the dedication, short. Okay. So we'll just do the dedication on page 24, at the bottom of page 24. By the virtues collected in the 3 times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Dragompa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara.
Okay, thank you very much. And also I have a few words announcement.
Yeah, that's all.
That thing, Khenchen Muchindela Pep, Tikitim there, Jitangatsuda, Kantakila, Sasaji, Yorwatati. That Natsutindi, Kichabdanda, you wonder which knew your modesty, that Jatan ngazo yegi la sajeji yores.
So, Drupal Rinpoche just wanted to mention that perhaps in connection with this very auspicious occasion or interdependence of Khenchen Rinpoche being here, that he also wants to mention or introduce, something about this project or the land in Kentucky, which we don't have any sort of like formal announcements or brochures or anything about, but he thought it would be a good opportunity to mention something about this project.
That in the Jatan, that sajati, that ngazo sajat chuto segrot, such ega hipchinas to usaris, the gana yiki, the stribla, ega judo yori, linkana ega juni or destin, the mawon beke, what at the land.
And so there we have land, retreat land in Kentucky. There are 45 acres. Of these, Steve owns 16 acres and Lincoln owns 12.
Tinidati, a chariot, a maumbala, that chariot, mamboji yores in a touch, chariot jig do yak chitola, and chariot mamboji tengu sarawa.
And so there are lots of plans, but in order to accomplish those plans, there's one plan that first has to be accomplished.
Tonda jig drop go na. Then got a chariot mamboji on a chariot jig drop cigarettes.
Oh, so even though there are many plans, among those different plans, maybe we can at least accomplish one plan.
Okay. So that is the charity Karsenata, Nato Yagila, some during Buddhist Degonare, some to Sutung Degonare, Tinichine, a combo chung Tindija, Tine, tell a bathroom your one rochi, Tinichine, a court some deaki, charity yoris.
So the first plan is to have a facility that enables people to do both long-term and temporary retreats. So to have some retreat cabins that are equipped, for instance, with bathrooms, so that there's the potential there to stay and retreat, to both do long retreats and more short-term retreats.
That charity the young Koran so that individually such as this so new individually ko kambando samkando tonda karchiguna somebody as a train samkando jagake rana suzuki tini jagake tindichina young charity yours.
So then the other objective or plan is to enable people to also have their own individual houses or retreat cabins, so people can actually buy pieces of the property and build their own houses.
Tiga na yike ta nga zo sacha yore tiga na yang sacha tali mas go na tanda ta zo sacha yungsa di namdo yore namdo koran sacha yang yores ko zomgo yores.
And so there's sort of the main individual who is heading up this project. His name is Namdo, and he owns the majority of the land. So he's the one who is selling the land.
Oda tiga na yinga zo chozo sacha gang la ta tendi do china de yores.
La? So he has actually said that it is okay, to build or create a center there on that land.
Yang tiga na yiketa ji yabondo tendi chumbina yang ji nenarindo tendi ke ji nopcho beta tawa inari aneri inari tendi desando yang the retirement do tendi do some no yores.
So then another plan or potentiality is that maybe in the future it could become like a nunnery or a monastery or both, particularly for Western monastics, monks and nuns. And the other option or opportunity is that it could become also like a retirement community.
다 틴디 인도 다 텔레양 고 잡초 칭겐도 다 틴디 다 단다 양 고지 값 하바텔라 카르세나 다 가서 제탕 속바 속선도지 요리 티네야 텔라 다지 얘긴 속번 소비가라다 지 답상당 바트룸도 소고 요레스 대서 담보터 통미나 되는 first step 로지 this that 로야지 요레스.
And so, but the first step is really to tiniti gongta tendati penasacha mongon nyogo agi tunda repeti kambazo ya.
말이 강바지 다 강바 요로와 속바 속사 요레스. We have the okay maybe.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have the Hyangrom sort of yeah maybe yes we said we have Hyangrom. But we have Khenchen. But Khenchen is not complete, and also their installations. So I think that is no recording. Okay. So first, the most important is the bathrooms, and have to make the kitchen. So that is kind of priority. So that's the, so we here Sangha member. So actually we are there is stupa, so stupa complete finish, and the weather is very nice. Summer, not like Florida, but also not like weather is the winter in Florida. So. Also, if that is not really difficult, but also if finish, so we are some group, go there, sort of like little bit retreat or little bit, just walk actually top of the mountain. So I think pretty nice, and also I want to, working together, and also James. So first, this land connection from the long story, but he
Dao Rinchen, who is right here. Yeah.
Yeah. So monk when I monk. So we no area, so no related anything, no connections, Sangha members, but through him and also he mentioned to the Namdo, he was there. I said long story, but short story is then he mentioned, he said, okay, maybe if you build stupa, it's good. So he told the Namdo, so Namdo is owner the land, and Namdo agreed. We build the stupa complete. So then later on, that's coming. So also you are come to this. Thank you. Okay. Okay, that's good. So much. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow 10. Thank you.